Hello, and thank you for joining this session of the Tampa um, B2B marketer parentheses Pardot um, community group. Um, this is a returning guest, a returning presenter, Mark Summers, who previously did another session that was also really cool, and he shared some interesting solutions that he'd come up during his career. Um, so this is being recorded, and it will also be on the community group page and on the Pardot Geeks blog. Um, my name is Ben Lamoth. I'm a senior solutions architect with BDO Digital. Um, if you'd like to work together at some point, feel free to reach out either on LinkedIn. You can email me or anything of that nature. Be happy to see if there's an opportunity to work together. Um, And with that, I will hand it over to our presenter, Mark Summers. So take it away, Mark.
Thanks for the intro, Ben. Again, thanks for having me. Good to be back. Now, this is like one of my favorite topics to talk about, even though it's got a really unruly title, because well, we're really going to be talking about promo codes, but it's really going to be an excuse for me to talk about architecture and a lot of interesting things. So a more accurate title for this might end up being, "What's a microservice?" Because this is really what's going to be the more important part of what we're talking about, where we're going to talk about just how you can design things like promo codes and everything else you work in your org in a way that will make it easier for you to expand on your work and reuse pieces. And so instead of doing a linear development, start working in a more cohesive and, for lack of a better word, enterprise level level way. But before we get all into that, this is me and my ridiculous certifications. And although currently a free agent, so if you like what to see, feel free to slide into the DMs. I won't be offended. Now, if you all saw that previous session I did about surveys and you're wondering, is Mark the type of person who would use the same joke in two presentations? Yes, in fact, I am. But let's move on to the more interesting things you actually hear about. So, but I say that before I ask you a completely random question, but just as a thought experiment, think about the process it takes you to start your car. I promise this will connect to something later. Now, if you're like me and thought way too much about just how everything else in your life works, you'd probably come up with a list something like this, where I'm going to start the car. I got to go find my keys, move the key to the car, use the key to open the door, get in, turn the key, acknowledge the fact that I use a manual transmission, do a bunch of things. We're talking 14 steps, and I kind of glossed over a lot. So our simple action of just starting the car, notice it breaks down to a lot of independent points that are all required. Now, this is an example of what we call an architecture, a pattern, which this is for our purposes today, just a quick web. Just think of the pattern as just the method in which we accomplish a repeatable task and the way in which things are going to be designed. Now, to bring this over, when we talk about making a promo code, let's think about some of the steps. So and again, I'm kind of glossed over this. So we got to make a new automation, because if promo code equals X, I need to do Y and Z. So there's a new automation. I got to make sure that automation works and worked on any platform, any automation. It's always fraud. You're never going to, no automation takes 5 minutes between the testing, the planning, the impact planning, and all that. So there's a big thing there. But of course, it's not just enough just to make the automation that puts all the promo code stuff in place. I got to send you an email about it. So I got to make a new email template linked to that specific promo code. And then I got to make an automation Pardot, either engagement program or an automation rule, to make sure you actually get that email. And then when I've done all that, I got to test it. So each one of these steps takes a pretty big amount of time. Now, when you work on promo codes, it may not be just one promo code at a time. You might get a batch of 2 or 3 very similar promo codes. Same time, so you can see how this work starts to add up. Now, while this pattern here gets the job done, this is also an example of what we call an anti-pattern, which is basically a pattern that, while getting the job done, makes it harder for you to continue getting the job done. And again, I'm glossing over this. If you want to know more about this, check out the trail mix for the preparation for the strategy designer certification. This will come up there a lot. And also, if you're looking for a certification to get that's actually not too intense, but introduction to architecture, it is a good study path. So this is where we're going to bring into microservices. Now, this is the definition of microservices following up from this is just an engineering concept. And of course, I'll go ahead and read it out loud, which I hate reading slides out loud, but a microservice is just an architectural pattern that arranges an application as a collection of loosely coupled, finely grained services communicating through lightweight protocols. What does that mean? Short answer is the method. If you spend a lot of time with looking at like Apex code and things like that, especially like the best practices related to Apex triggers, it's one of the best practices is not to include your logic and execution inside the trigger, but instead have it reference an Apex class. In that example, the Apex class is a good example of a microservice where the trigger says, I need to do this action. This action is contained in that particular service, which would be the Apex class. Now, that's an example of offloading the business logic somewhere else. And for what our purposes for the example we'll be talking about a lot today for promo codes, you can also use microservices to store variables related to a value that other parts of your service can just go and get ad hoc. So instead of building in all your all the variables and different values directly into the service that needs them, you just give the service a way to go get them. So this requires a little bit of planning and fiddling around with how you design things. So I'm going to be a little less focused on the particulars of how you're going to build things. I'm just going to show you how you can build them because I know everyone's business is unique and everyone has different needs. So I'm just going to give you some examples and some patterns you can implement in and the ways you can do them and what the impact of these can be. And also keep in mind, these are not linear patterns. So you can implement one or all or none and anything else you need in these patterns. But by giving you this framework of building out the pattern of a microservice, the send and retrieve the pattern for anything that needs a promo code and where your promo code lives, it's going to make your life a lot easier. So this is really just kind of what the actual the pattern is going to be for any time you need to use anything needs to use a promo code. Is it's just going to look for the promo code object, get the variables it needs, and puts it back and then use it as the way it needs it. Now, one of the advantages of this is different parts of your organization can use promo codes differently. Like for example, in our case for Pardot, once we have a promo code associated with a lead, we can inject information onto that lead that we can use in our marketing drips directly without having to code in a completely separate marketing drip when we just know that something that has received a promo code will have these variables in place and then structure our emails and marketing drips accordingly. And much in the same way, we can structure opportunity generation, campaign management into just once a promo code is detected, the platform knows what to do, what to look for, and then does what it's asked. And to get a little bit more specific about this, we're going to start off just from the top level of just what would the promo code object look like. So just a simple object in Salesforce. We're just going to use the name as a number, auto number, because you're going to generate a lot of these. And the most important part is a unique text field where we're just going to store the promo code because that's ultimately going to be what everything is going to use as the key to find the promo code and the associated values it needs. And of course, as you can see here, some fields for business logic. For example, up here, like an expiration date, a discount percentage, a partner account, so you can associate the promo codes to the partner source, a lead source, all that. And I'll talk a little bit more specifically about what all these do as we get into some examples. But the more important part is just more think of it as this is the repository for everything you're going to need for a promo code. Because by the end of this process, once you've built in the supporting automation everywhere else, when you need to generate a new promo code, you don't have to go change any code, change any metadata. You just generate out one of these records for the new promo code, and then anything that needs to look at a promo code has the key to find it, and then has all the information it needs to execute what that promo is. An example of some of these extra features, and I will walk through go a little bit more detail about each one of these little sections as some example ways you can extend and utilize promo codes. Here, you just put, again, just like we put at the top, just some extra fields that we will be using later. Now, before I get too deep into that, because I do want to do this, and this is a good thing for Ben as well as anyone else who is studying for the platform app builder. Here's a quick pop quiz question. All right, so in the chat, I'll give you about 30 seconds to answer this. What is the value of a pick list field? And I'm gonna awkwardly talk for enough time to see if someone's gonna be brave enough to enter an answer, or just be really confused about the way I phrase this, because what is the value of a pick list field? Is it the pick list value? What does that mean? Well, this is going to be a tool that's going to help us out later, because the value of a pick list field is not actually the value. There's actually two values. There's the label, which is the one we all see, and the API name. As you can see here on this example, I changed it off to what you can recognize as a user ID by that 005 starting prefix. Now, 99% of the time, you want the value and the label to match up. This is so when you're doing reporting this way, so when you do like an import or something, you can use consistent values, because value A is always going to be value A. And also, if you run into weird problems with imports, check your pick list values, because sometimes they may get desynced. And if you're doing something, again, like an import or an API integration, is injecting a specific value and it's not matching up with its label, it can create some confusion when preparing some imports. Now, that's why you don't want to desync them, but there's some reasons why you should desync them. Like, for example, for a use case I'll be showing later, where if you apply the specific code value to a label, then you could use it for what I'll be using here, which would be a way to use preset and have conditional routing assignments based on, again, the promo code as it is. This is an example, but also just something to pay attention to, because as you get further into integrations, you will run into this occasionally, because sometimes some integrations don't support spaces. So you may end up having underscores in the value that's being sent to you by your integration, but your label won't have those in them. So you'll have to set up a desync just so you can use your reporting for the UI very differently than the way that the integration is going to be communicating with Salesforce. Little tangent, but again, that will be a tool that will help us out later, which then goes down to what I was talking about, the next step. Once we have our promo code and a repository of variables that are going to be needed, we just make sure that there's an automation in place on any part that's going to that gets the promo code and then needs to do something with it. Just a simple automation to do a get and grab it. And this can be through flow, just using the get logic. If you're using, and this also does not limit it just to Salesforce itself. If you're using a custom web form and you have some web developer resources and you want to check on promo codes, they can do, as an example I'll be talking about later, they can do an API call directly into Salesforce to validate those promo codes and then run additional logic from there as well. So don't think this is just a Salesforce thing. It's just in design, you really think about it as a system agnostic way, because it doesn't need to be Pardot, doesn't even need to be Salesforce. It's just anything related to your promo codes is all going to live in the same spot. And then anything that needs it knows where to get it in a consistent way. So let's talk about some of these consistent ways. As you saw in my first example, I had a field for a channel partner. So if my sales manager says, hey, show me all the active promo codes for all our by channel partners. Again, I can just do a basic report right there from the promo codes, right? And then there it is. Don't have to do anything special, because I've already done the work by setting up our promos in a way that makes them more reportable and more attributable. And of course, with that value, you can also use those to do the further segmentation in your own reporting as per your needs. So just one headache solved right at the gate. Now let's go to the one that I think most of you are going to care about, which is, how do you not have to make a new email every time someone starts a new campaign? Well, this is kind of the way we're going to get there. So just an example of the pattern, if the promo code lives on either the lead or contact, get there. But if, for example, the promo code is linked to an opportunity, the same pattern kind of will still work. It's just the automation needs to be extended a little bit based on where the promo code enters, and then what has to be executed because of it. So, but in this case, it's just we know where the promo code is, and for my example here, I put it on lead just for simplicity, and I put in some fields here on our promo code object to have values that can be put in. And now this is kind of where the flexibility of a pattern comes in, because when you have a promo code, it's usually going to be, thanks for using this promo code, you got X, and X could be 10% off, $200 off, a $50 purchase, or it could even be a free product. Which is why you notice all these fields I have there in my screenshot all say text on them. Now, the reason why I say text and not numbers or specific percentages is just giving you when the way you're going to build your email template is going to be, thank you for using this promo code, whatever, for getting which will get you, and then X1, which is going to be whatever your discount is. And that could either be, again, a number, it could be a percentage, or it could even be a string. So so when you spend, and then going to my spend requirement, when you, and then either buy a PS2 or spend $50, all these variables can be, all those use cases can be handled by a single email template and a single variable, because we're just looking for a text value. So once you have your email template set up in that flexible way where you just have the placeholder variables there, you can just use use the automation on Salesforce side to just inject into your lead or contact object into some fields related to your welcome email, which then Pardot will look for and says, oh, I need to send a welcome email because that field is also now checked. Sends the welcome email template using these values. So once you set up one template, everything comes out consistently. And as I mentioned in the previous use case with channel partners, you can even have the channel partner branding come up there through a dynamic value, again, because you have access to these values and you can inject them into the record as they're needed. So again, with one template, you can power every one of your welcome chains. This is a structure I actually used at Snapchat when we were doing some pretty aggressive channel partner workload. So before we started this process, the channel onboarding a new channel partner, they required multiple new emails, one for each promo code, because there was a different spend requirements, different spend tiers related to the promo codes. So you can see how that work was piling up and then creating a lot of templates. By switching over to this one system, this new system where we were just looking for these two variables and then sending the welcome email using those variables, it cut the onboarding time of new channel partner between creating the new emails, creating the new automation, as well as also the automation on Salesforce side to map the other backend systems for the promo codes. It brought that time down from around 20 hours per promo code to 5 minutes. So this is an example of how much you can, again, was by saving some patterns. Using the patterns, you can save a lot of time. And again, feel free to ask questions, because I structured this in such a way where we'll have a little bit more time. So you have use cases you want to see, I can walk through some high level examples of how you can leverage these. But moving on to some other cool things we can do, like what's the next thing we're going to ask as a marketer? How do we add to a campaign? Well, there we are. Just in your promo code, just have a field to let someone know, are we going to add to a campaign? If yes, what campaign are they going to be added to? Now, pro tip in Salesforce, when you're using a flow to add somebody to a campaign, make sure you do a get to check to see if they're already in that campaign, because if you don't, your flow will fail, it'll throw errors, and you'll have a bad time. But yeah, but the example, once you already have that automation in place on, again, whatever record or object gets that promo code, you can just have the part of the automation to be, oh, I need to add someone to a campaign there, and this is the campaign I need to add them in. So again, you don't have to make an automation to add each individual person who uses a promo code to a unique campaign, because each promo code itself knows what campaign the person who used it needs to be in. Now, even a more interesting thing we can track is how often your promo codes were used. So we can just make a separate object to just be a tracker of what promo codes were used by who. So just the same process, again, that does all the other logic we just talked about, applying that apply that logic and just include a thing of we're just going to populate some lookups here related again to the promo code and then either the lead, the contact, the count, opportunity. Anything we want to do there, we can do that. Now, of course, this also is going to bring me up to my next pop quiz. Ben, this is actually a question on the exam I know you're studying for, so I do want to hear your answer to this. Why in that example did I use lookup relationships and not master detail?
Because you, crap, I know. Well, I can't give you a good reason. I understand. Intellectually, I understand why, but I can't give you an.
Yeah, there's the test answer. Good reason why I didn't use master detail there is because lead cannot exist as the master side of a master detail
Okay.
relationship.
I actually didn't know that, so that's good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, like all standard objects in Salesforce, the standard objects all play by different rules. And there's two important rules for master detail relationships. One is the standard object cannot be a detail relationship to any other object, and leads do not play nicely with master detail relationships. And that's because of the way the lead conversion works in the back end. That's going to cause that always is going to cause a lot of headaches when you think about it. But it's a good got to the know. Now, they all didn't need to be lookups. If you want to be real technical, the difference between using a lookup and a master detail between redeemed promo and promo code, that easily that totally flies, makes sense. The good thing to do. So that's just up to you. I just did it as lookups because each redeemed promo is only going to relate back to a single promo code. And of course, you could have many redeemed promos, but they're actually it's still gonna be a one-to-one relationship between the redemption promo and the promo codes themselves. But of course, this is a good way so you can just make an easy marker of opportunities that have used a promo code, accounts that have used a promo code, contacts who have used a promo code. So depending on how your sales model works, you can just have an easy repository of where these promo codes were, and because they're linked to, because you can easily tag them to opportunities, that also means you can track revenue more directly related to these promo codes as well. Again, all depending on your use case. And I went one too far. There we go. Hit the button too many times. Now, as I mentioned earlier, like some other cool things we can do with having that central repository pattern of send and retrieve for the promo code data. If you're using a dedicated web form, like a web to lead form, and you have some web developer resources, or you have an online shopping situation, a commerce situation where someone enters their promo codes, you just have a repository that your developers can ping to verify again if a promo code is valid. And if it is valid, what does they need to do on the shopping platform? So you can work with your web developer or your general development team for the shopping system to make their life easier too. So again, makes the whole process of generating a new promo code, instead of being a specific point by point automation of what specific things we're going to have to do related to this one promo, of just knowing what are the kind of things a promo code can do, and then building an automation to look for them and grab the appropriate ones as needed. So once we front load the labor, you can make a promo code anytime you want. It'll work on your web form within 5 minutes because it's looking for the most current data. And that way, your sales manager, whenever they're off at a wedding and they're trying to close that one special deal they promised someone, they can just text you, make this promo code. You just spin up the record. And because it's also a Salesforce record, they don't even need to text you. You can give them access to create their own promo codes on the fly. Which is, again, thing I should have probably brought up at the front, but it is a good example of just the power by making it a single record. You don't have to change code, and anyone who all you have to do require access to is just anyone who has the authority to create a promo code, and that just makes a new one. And one more use case, which is a little bit more complicated because it's Pardot forms are a bit clunky in that way, where you don't get that secondary call out. You don't have as many of these extra tools to get this around. So we gotta force Pardot forms into the pattern I mentioned earlier, where promo code hits an object in Salesforce, and then Salesforce knows what to do with it. So the way we're going to get into that pattern is just if your Pardot form has a promo code entry form. I actually don't recommend using Pardot. Pardot was a promo code directly, because getting the Pardot form to be able to look for a valid promo in Salesforce via an API call, a lot harder in that case. And it's almost better just to make the form itself auto populate the promo code as a completion action, and just have the separate landing pages for these purposes for webinars, things like that. A little bit more complicated, but it's just a good way to get back into that pattern of, once we put the promo code in a place where Salesforce can see it, which in this case will be the lead or the contact, where we'll do pretty much the same standard way of, we collect the promo code in the form, lead and we do an assignment action in Pardot, and that's just to make sure if it's not already existing in Salesforce, that the lead record gets created. Then and when you do that assignment record by assigned to lead product, and just a good refresher in Pardot, the lead and contact owner in Salesforce is protected and is the sales. So assignment actions in Pardot don't actually overwrite a lead owner. So that's a good way. So we can just have a built-in, just create them. So we make sure that the record exists. The promo code field gets updated. That will trigger our existing automation that's already in place from all the other things we just talked about, to go grab the variables related to that promo code and then put it back in. And then in the next sync cycle, so 6 minutes total, all your variables get in. So you might get a delayed welcome email, but you will also make sure the proper drip values and everything goes in there without having to make a brand new drip or engagement program for every time you want to create an entry point via Pardot. So slightly more complicated way to get there from Pardot directly, but if when you start thinking the process of promo codes will enter the system from somewhere, and once they do, the appropriate actions will take place, which is the appropriate pattern to think about. And then it's a good way to think about it, because then instead of changing the process of what do I need to do for each promo code, it's just, how do I get the promo code into a spot where we can do everything we need to do in the way we already do it. Which I think brings me up to the end of all of my examples. So I was keeping an eye on the chat. Anyone have a good like a good question, comment, concern, or just a use case they want to run through? I think we still have time. Otherwise, I think, Ben, we can give some people back a good chunk of time.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you so much. There weren't many questions, but it's a pretty kind of high level topic. Ellen Tran does have a question. Is the promo code a custom object or field?
Both. You're going to make the custom object that stores the promo code and its variable and all its core variables. I did gloss over this because I didn't actually show some of the ways it's used for. But again, like the promo code object itself is going to store everything related to the specific promo codes, and and then on any object that collects it, so either going to be from like your lead or contact from the web lead form, your opportunities that you're receiving from your shopping platform, some other place where a promo code can enter, wherever that promo code can enter, that's just going to be a field, and that will trigger an automation to look over. And I do actually have examples. Let me jump into my handy dandy dev.org, and I'll show you the one I built out. Give me a second. Did I magically click on the right tab? Almost. Here we go. So here's an example of just what one of these flows will look like on the lead object and process, and some of the steps we're going to do. Like I'm just going to have my triggering condition just be promo code. Just going to pop that out. I can never get used to this. We're just looking for created or edited. I'm looking for just a not blank and is changed value. So that way, just we know like a promo code is hit our entry point. That could either be again for like the web form, for sales process, for this example there. And then of course we just check if the promo code's valid by checking the expiration date. And then we just looked over on my object record where I showed you there, like, am I going to create an opportunity? It's just, does the promo code have opportunity checked? If yes, go ahead, generate your record. And this is what happens if you leave a tab open for too long. You get too many too many errors, that's fine. But there you go. You can just make your opportunity, move on. As I mentioned over here with campaign members, if you want to add them to campaign, that's something you can do. Just make sure you check to see if they're already there. And then you move on, create your redeem promo record. And then if we're going to do the send the welcome email, this is just, again, an example of how this all works. And if I jump over to one of my other tabs here, we just spin one out. And Ellen did have another. Yes, the question is, so the answer is both. You make the automations in Salesforce to, once a promo code is detected, to grab it and then do what you need to do on that specific object. And for the case for Pardot engagement, that would be on the lead automation to just once one of these promo codes is detected, the values for Pardot are going to be inserted onto your lead or contact record, and then your engagement program is just going to look for these specific values related to your promo code structure to use them.
So basically, it's a lot of kind of machinations and stuff that are happening in Salesforce to deliver the values to Pardot to be able to leverage them in automations.
Yeah, that's the best way to think of it, because more of like the values are all going to live somewhere. We're just going to create a way for you to make them live in a place that's easy to edit, so you don't have to make a new automation every time you need to use one of these. Because that's really where the time sinks come in, because you make a new engagement program, even if you're copy and pasting from existing ones, it's still time, it's still and it's still bloat in the system, because you're creating more templates or engagement programs. It's all going to eat up your limits, and is also just going to make the system kind of hard to navigate. So by making a system that's just looking for, I know what the promo code is going to be used. I know I'm going to have these 5 fields filled in, and these 5 fields are going to be what I'm going to use. So I just build my templates and automations around once these fields are populated, use these fields to populate my email templates, and move on.
All right. I don't see any more questions. I don't think. You answered Dirk's. You answered Ellen. So I think we're good. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining. Thank you, Mark, for returning. As always, you have something else you want to talk about? Open invitation. Appreciate everything that you're doing here. These are a lot of kind of more complex use cases that people will sometimes not think that Salesforce and Pardot together are capable of. So these are just great examples of the more kind of stepped up things that you can do between the two systems. The recording will be, like I said, on the community group page for this event, and then I'll put it up on the blog, and then it'll also end up on LinkedIn and YouTube. The next session that we have is we have coming up pretty soon. It is on the 15th. It is a co-presentation with myself and a friend of mine. We're going to talk about person accounts, and that is on the 15th, May 15th, 1:30 p.m. Me and Allie, her name is Allie, she and I are going to be talking about how to kind of best leverage person accounts, the limits and the kind of the art of the possible, I guess, around person accounts, things to be aware of, things to limits that exist, etc. So I will put that in the chat if you would like to RSVP for that as well. I imagine Mark has some experience with that too. So
yeah, person accounts have ruined my life on more than one occasion.
Person accounts are awful, but they have very specific use cases where they meet the need.
Yeah. They're like multi-select pick list. I hate that I have to use them.
Yeah, but there are some scenarios where it does make sense to use them. There's a limited use cases, but they do exist, and you can make them work in Pardot. So feel free to join, Mark, if you want to chime in as well. Happy to have some of your insights. But with that, I will give you guys back. No, actually, are we over? We might be over. Anyways.
Oh.
All right. Well, thank you again, everybody. And till next time, And thank you again, Mark. Everyone have a good rest of your day.
Thanks for having me.
Yep, cheers.